I was born in the hospital in Murtoa, which would have been 25 k's away. My mother had previously had 2 children, 2 boys, who were born at home with a midwife present. But my mother, by the time I was to be born, was 40 years old and decided she should perhaps go to hospital. So she went up to Murtoa, to the hospital, when I was due.
So how far away from Lubeck was that?
About 25 k's.
Okay.
Did say
How
that.
did you get there? How did she get there? In a car?
I think Dad had a car.
Yeah.
When she got there, to find out that the doctor had gone away. He'd gone up to Queensland or up north of Australia because some of the royalty were out, opening either Parliament or something up there, something of the sort. So she only still had a midwife in the hospital.
All that way for a midwife again. And of course the current Queen at that stage was 1 year older than you.
Yes, she was 1 year old when they came out. It was her parents who came out to do they'd left her at home in England. So that they had left their 1 year old daughter back in England. And when my mother named me, I was actually called Betty because she might name me Hilda Betty, but I've always been called Betty because the Queen, when she was little, was always called Bet Bet.
Really? Oh, I never knew that. Well, there you go. So you're actually connected to royalty by birthday and birth.
Mm.
Right, okay. How about that?
That's right.
Oh. He had.
Yes, when he was a young man, would be in his early married life, he had quite a bad impediment, speech impediment, stuttering, and in Lubeck somebody started up a group who used to do shows like plays on different subjects, or where you took a part and you were a part and he took a part. And he made up his mind he was going to try and get over this stuttering, which meant he had to talk in front of people, whatever part he was playing. And he really worked at it and he got through, he didn't stutter anymore.
Okay. So your mother would have had a fire stove?
Yes.
And she washed the dishes, you were saying before, in a bucket?
In a dish. Aluminium dish. When she finished the dishes, she'd take the dish outside and water the pot plants with it.
Yep. Right.
That's the only water they got.
And she used some sort of soap, velvety soap type stuff.
Velvet soap it'd be, no doubt.
Yeah, okay. To wash the dishes.
Yeah.
And was the house heated?
Oh, no. There's an open fire in the kitchen area.
Yeah.
Where the little lambs, they survived all night with that warmth.
Yeah.
There'd no doubt be a screen in front of it, of course.
Yeah.
We had to feed them with bottles. I used to love him bringing in a lamb. I'd reared a few lambs.
Yeah.
And then they sort of disappeared or got sold, which was sad.
So no heating in the rooms, no cooling, no ceiling fans.
A big old house was freezing.
Yeah.
Oh, really cold.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And the toilet?
Outside.
Outside. Yeah. The outhouse.
They're all were outside in those days.
And they were pit. Were they pit toilets, or did they have a bucket underneath them? Or what were they?
Yeah, they would have had a container. which my father would have had to empty.
To empty all the boys.
I know when we lived in Rapania, it was the same type of toilet, but there was a dunny man that came around and emptied those. That was his job. That was in Rapania.
Right.
Later years.
Later years. That was pretty flash, a dunny man.
Now the other thing I haven't told you, bath was once a week.
Yeah.
So I had two brothers older than me, so the eldest one had his bath first. The next one got in second, and Betty was always last. Wasn't a case of ladies first.
Right,
no.
okay. All right.
When I got to Melbourne, I had gone to grade 6 in Lubeck, but when I got to Melbourne, they decided I should redo grade 6 in Essendon. Raleigh Street, Essendon I went to, and when I walked into the room, I was very nervous because I'd only ever been to small school and all these faces looking at me. Very, very frightening for me. On my best dress, and one of the girls sitting in the desk looked at me and she shrank right down under the desk because she had exactly the same dress on as I did. And I suppose she thought, oh, here's this country girl with my dress on.
And who was that girl?
She turned out to be, later on, one of my very best friends, Shirley Manley. We went through high school together. And yeah, she was one of my best friends.
Yeah, great. Good, good.
I was very close. And my brother Ken was 3 years older than me, so he was at high school before me. And he had a bike. And Betty did not have a bike. She had to walk the whole way. So I'd start off walking and Ken had come along pedalling away past me and he wouldn't even wave and say hello, he'd just keep going. Very rude, I thought, and it took me well over half an hour to walk to school.
Wow. To Essendon High?
Essendon High School.
Okay.
The best school in the state.
Yeah. Cool.
One thing I remember about the high school, after school, the boys had to walk on one side of the road home and the girls the other side. They were not allowed to walk on the same side of the street. Until we got round the corner and one day I was walking home. I was on my own by this time. No, I wasn't. He must have been with me. And a bus went past. And I didn't take any notice, but the next day in school, in class, this teacher said, Betty, who was that I saw you walking home from school with? And I thought, here goes, I'm going to be expelled. Anyway, I wasn't expelled, but I wasn't allowed to do it.
That's good. Even though you got...
Norma Ollie and I, we used to do real daredevil stuff.
Yeah. Norma Ollie, who was that?
Norma Turnbull.
Okay.
She became.
Oh, really?
And have I ever told you the episode when I worked at the AMP?
No.
Yeah, we'd often go up and have lunch on the roof.
All right.
Which we could.
Yeah.
And one of our girls, who now lives in Shepparton, I really haven't caught up with her, but I know she's there. She used to get outside the railing and walk around on this, about this wide, around,
Oh, good.
drop down for... Oh, no, I never did that. I never got outside the railing. I wanted to look over it.
Good grief.
Yeah, terrible things. Anyway, she never fell, thank goodness. She is still alive. She was a beautiful singer too, Joan Sadler. Yeah, he was at high school, and we went to the same church.
Yeah.
In those days, the church was all our entertainment.
Yeah.
We went to church. I was in the choir, and he'd sit with Basher and all those boys. They had to come to, remember Dad's funeral?
That's right.
Had to come to church once a week or fortnight or
To
something.
be able to play footy.
Yeah. They'd been saying, gee, I'm not sure. And they'd be sitting down there and they'd be giggling and us up in the choir.
Yeah.
Yes, their birthdays were only a couple of months apart. Dad's was October, Basher was January. And so they both went in together. Well, Basher's eyesight was bad. So Dad was pushed in first. Well, Basher made sure he went first. And he, you know, they had to read the letters. Dad memorised what they were on the thing, told Basher. So that's the only way he got through with his eyes.
Oh dear.
Devils. Yes, the principal, Mr. Byrne, and his son was pretty high up in the Air Force, he was.
Yeah.
And suddenly he came home on leave, just out of the blue, and his father was so delighted he declared a half holiday from school. We were more delighted than him.
Good grief, you never get away with that.
Susan and I reckoned we were the only ones that could handle him all. He was good for. And Pat, I would.
Yeah.
If we were going away to Melbourne or something for a while, he'd always go and stay with Pat. No one else. Poor old Pete.
Coach football
He
up there
wasn't
because
allowed.
he thought it was too. Did they say he couldn't, or he decided
Yes,
not to?
there were two teams in the town,
Yeah.
Federals and
Corrion.
there were two, I think, or more.
But bush councillors from outside.
You know, in the office of the not the office, one of the councillors, two councillors, who I suppose one was with one team,
Yeah.
and one was with the other.
Yeah.
So he was no way was Greg allowed to coach in the town. That's the first time he was set back from that. But in the end, he was allowed to coach the
Interleague side. Yeah.
That was all.
I do remember playing cricket at the front, on the front lawn once, and hitting a cricket ball through the stained glass windows, the front windows.
Stained glass.
Yeah. And the ball landed in Dad's slipper while he was watching the TV.
Well,
I
he
think.
took his
Yeah.
slipper off.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So that didn't go down too well.
What about the time you all got up and it had been snowing? And you rushed out and made a snowman. Don't you remember that?
Yes, yes. That's right. It snowed.
Snowed.
Bitter.
One other time I know Sue was playing netball there, and it was snowing while they were playing.
We're certainly chopping the heads off chooks in those days. That was where I learnt to cut the heads off chooks and roosters, Mum. You taught me that.
And you didn't faint.
No. I just held them till they stopped whacking their wings and the blood stopped.
It was where too that David threw his dummy over into the paddock where the horses were.
Yeah.
And that was it. He never grizzled either.
I threw my dummy out the back to the snakes at Corrion, off the back veranda. Remember that? So the snakes obviously took it because it wasn't there the next day.
Strange that. Good memories, John, all of them.
Yeah.
We've had a good life.
We have had a good life. We had chooks up the back of that block.
Yeah. And you had a tree house?
I had a tree house. I had this secret treasure that I buried up the back. And I said to Peter said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm burying this secret treasure. It's going to be here for a long time. Don't tell anybody about it." Peter said, "Okay."
What did you do? Dig it up?
Next day he dug it up.
A rotten little cow. Yes, I always had a cat. Everywhere I've lived except here, I like cats and I always had a cat. And this was a mother cat I had in Lubeck. And she had a batch of babies and she had them there with her for only a few days and then they disappeared. Is this what you want me to say?
Yeah, it's fine.
And I couldn't make out where they could have gone. I searched everywhere for them. And I wasn't told, but apparently my father must have had to get rid of them because you can't have too many around.
No.
Well, months later, there was another batch of kittens in her bed. Oh, how lovely, I thought, because I loved cats. Anyway, they were there perhaps for a week or so, and maybe I went out somewhere, and when I came home I was looking for the cats and they weren't there. So the same thing happened to those. I'm sorry about that sad story, but I guess it had to happen.
Maybe he just
I'm not blaming my father at all.
Maybe your father took them around Lubeck and gave them to different people.
He may have, yes. Yep. One to this person and one to that person.
That's right.
Okay, that's a nice thought.
Yeah. Don't know the name, but...
Sue hated cats. She wouldn't have anything to do with it, and she brought it home. I said, "Why did you bring it home if you didn't like it?" "Oh, well, I want it and I had to bring it home." We'll remind her of that tomorrow, John.
We'll remind her of that tomorrow, yes. And that was the same cat that Dad let inside on a particular day when you had lamb's fry out to cook.
That's right. Up on the bench I had it all ready to get prepared and must have left the room or turned my back. The cat leapt up on the bench, grabbed the lamb's fry, ran quickly right up the house, right up the passage to the front room and got under the bed and eating this lamb's fry. Well, what an uproar.
Because Dad had let it in, yeah? It wasn't supposed to be inside.
And I think he was only laughing. And I said, "This is terrible. Now it's your fault. You should never have let it inside."
So we had to... Alright, so there were more than just cats, Mum.
We had a real menagerie. Peter had a cage of birds. He was breeding them.
Yeah.
To make money, of course.
Yeah.
And he got up one morning and, devastating. Their heads had been picked right off, each one of them.
Yeah.
And what's the name of that bird that does that? A
Butcher bird.
Oh, and also David had a horse, and our backyard in Yakandanda went on further when you got past the fence down to a creek, so there was plenty of room for the horse to wander around.
Yeah.
Lovely horse. David used to ride it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the time came when David came home from school and he had nits in his head.
Right. More pets.
And Mother was just horrified. She deliced the chooks, the cat, the dog, the horse. I was devastated. And he wasn't allowed to go back to school for days. Oh, that's a true story, I'm sorry, but it is. The life and times of the Tates.
Yeah, lovely, beautiful. Part 2.
State reception. Her Majesty the Queen, His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh, Mr. and Mrs. D.H. Tate are invited to the National Gallery of Victoria, St Kilda Road, Melbourne. Now that was in, yes, 1980 that was.
Okay, that was 1980.
There's some before.
Yeah.
And that's the time we also, the Mayor of Kerrang and his wife were invited. We were down
John Gilmore.
then.
John Gilmore.
And I was introduced to the Queen, shook her hand and had a little chat to her.
Great, again.
Very, very lovely lady.
Yeah.
And they were travelling in her yacht. Wouldn't be a yacht, it would be some sort of not a boat, a ship or whatever.
Yeah.
Her own.
Yeah.
And it was docked in Hobart. So after the reception they had to get back to Hobart. And it was pretty wild sort of a night. And I knew she had to get, and I mentioned something about, I knew she wasn't a good traveller. I said to her, I hope you're not seasick going back.
Very good. What's your next number? Oh, one more. Encore.
What was I playing before? Turned off a bit, I think.
You've got 5, that's right. You've got
did a little bit of that. Can't do that too well. Thank you, Peter. Albert, you're next.